Hi everyone, my name is Elizabeth and I'm 58 years old. I've been divorced for about 12 years now, and I have one daughter, Sophia, who's 28. For the past 6 years, I've been living with Sophia and her husband Marcus in what I thought is my house. But wait, let me back up because this story, oh my goodness, you guys are not going to believe what happened. See, I've spent most of my adult life sacrificing for my family. When Sophia was little, I worked 2 jobs to make sure she had everything she needed after her father left us. I cleaned offices at night and worked at a dental practice during the day. I barely slept, but I wanted my baby girl to have opportunities I never had. I saved every penny I could, and when Sophia turned 18, I finally had enough to buy us a small house in a quiet neighborhood. That house represented everything to me. Every sleepless night, every ache in my back from scrubbing floors, every time I chose to eat ramen so Sophia could have fresh groceries, it all led to having that little piece of security. The deed was in my name, and I was so proud. My daughter would have a stable home, something I never had growing up. But here's where things get complicated, and trust me, this is just the beginning of a story that's going to make your blood boil. When Sophia was 24, she met Marcus at a coffee shop downtown. She was there studying for her nursing board exams, and he was apparently working on some marketing presentation. He struck up a conversation about her textbooks, seemed genuinely interested in her career goals, and before I knew it, she was coming home every day with stories about this charming new guy. Marcus was 29 at the time, seemed mature and established. He had his own apartment, a decent car, and talked about his plans for the future with confidence. After Sophia's previous boyfriend, who shall remain nameless but was basically a man-child who couldn't hold a job, Marcus seemed like a breath of fresh air. Their first few months of dating were like something out of a romantic movie. He'd bring her flowers, take her to nice restaurants, and most importantly, he treated her with respect, or at least that's what it looked like from the outside. Sophia was absolutely smitten, and I'll admit, I was cautiously optimistic. My daughter deserved someone who would love and cherish her the way she deserved. But you know what I've learned over the years? Sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones who know exactly how to present themselves as perfect. They dated for about a year, and during that time, Marcus was the model boyfriend. He remembered important dates, got along well with Sophia's friends, and even made an effort to include me in their plans sometimes. When Sophia had to work late shifts at the hospital during her residency, he'd bring her dinner. When she was stressed about exams, he'd help her study. I started thinking that maybe, just maybe, my daughter had found one of the good ones. Then Sophia came to me with the idea about moving in together. "Mom," she said, "Marcus and I want to move in together, but his lease is ending and apartments are so expensive now. Would it be okay if he moved in here for a while, just until we figure things out?" Now you guys tell me in the comments if I'm crazy, but I said yes. This is my daughter, the person I'd do anything for, and if this man was going to be part of her life, I wanted to support them. Plus, the house had 3 bedrooms, so there was space. And honestly, having someone help with the mortgage and utilities would be a relief after all those years of struggling alone. So Marcus moved in, and I have to admit, the first few months were actually pretty pleasant. He was respectful of my space, always asked before using things, and even insisted on contributing to groceries and utilities. We'd have family dinners together, and he'd tell funny stories about his work or ask me about my day at the dental office. Sometimes we'd all watch movies together on weekends, and it felt normal, like we were actually becoming a family. Marcus seemed genuinely interested in making Sophia happy. He'd surprise her with little things, her favorite coffee when she had early shifts, a new book by an author she liked, or just flowers for no reason at all. He'd rub her feet when she came home tired from 12-hour shifts at the hospital, and he always bragged about her to his friends and family. "My girlfriend is going to be a nurse," he'd say with such pride. "She's going to save lives." I remember thinking that maybe this was what Sophia needed. Someone stable, someone who appreciated her, someone who could be her partner in building a real life. After watching her struggle through college and nursing school mostly on her own, seeing her so supported and loved was honestly a relief. They got engaged on their 1-year anniversary of living together. Marcus planned this elaborate proposal in the park, where they'd had their first date, complete with fairy lights strung in the trees and a photographer hidden in the bushes. Sophia called me crying happy tears afterward, and when I saw the ring, a beautiful vintage-style setting that was absolutely perfect for her, I thought he had really listened to what she wanted. Planning the wedding was actually fun. Marcus was involved but not controlling. He deferred to Sophia's preferences on most things, and he seemed genuinely excited about marrying her. His family was nice enough, a little reserved but not unpleasant. His parents lived across the country, so I didn't see them often, but they seemed to approve of Sophia and were polite to me. The wedding day itself was perfect, small and intimate, just the way Sophia had always dreamed. She looked absolutely radiant in her dress, and when I walked her down the aisle, I felt like I was finally able to give her something I'd always worried I couldn't, a chance at a truly happy partnership. Marcus cried when he saw her, and his vows were beautiful and heartfelt. I actually teared up myself listening to him promise to love and protect my daughter. I may have spent more than I should have helping them pay for it, but seeing my daughter in that white dress, looking so radiant, it was worth every penny. And Marcus? He looked at her like she was the most precious thing in the world. I thought we were becoming a real family. But you know what they say about people showing their true colors after the wedding. The changes started small, so subtle that I almost convinced myself I was imagining things. Marcus began making little comments about our house, as if he had some ownership stake in it. He'd tell friends and co-workers, "Yeah, we live in this great house in a quiet neighborhood," never mentioning that it was actually my house, my mortgage, my name on the deed. When I'd gently correct him in front of others, he'd laugh it off and say something like, "Oh, Elizabeth, you know what I mean. We're all family here, right?" But it wasn't just the way he talked about the house. It was the way he started acting in it. He'd rearrange furniture without asking, claiming he was just trying to optimize the flow of the living room. He'd adjust the thermostat and then make comments about how I was wasting money, keeping it too warm or too cool. When I'd cook dinner, he'd hover over me making suggestions about seasoning or cooking methods, as if I hadn't been successfully feeding myself and my daughter for decades. Then came the family meetings. Marcus started calling these little sit-downs to discuss household efficiency. He'd present these ideas like they were collaborative discussions, but really, he was just telling Sophia and me how he thought things should be run. The grocery shopping needed to be more organized. The cleaning schedule needed to be more systematic. We needed better systems for everything from laundry to lawn care. At first, I tried to accommodate these changes because I wanted to support their marriage. If being more organized made them happy, what was the harm? But Sophia started looking more and more uncomfortable during these meetings. She'd glance at me with this apologetic expression, like she wanted to say something but didn't know how. The real red flag should have been when Marcus started talking about boundaries. He'd bring up articles he'd read about healthy relationships requiring independence, about how important it was for married couples to establish their own routines and traditions. On the surface, this sounded reasonable, but the way he talked about it always seemed to center around me being the obstacle to their independence. "Elizabeth," he'd say during one of these conversations, "I know you mean well, but Sophia and I need to figure out our own way of doing things. When you cook dinner every night, it doesn't give Sophia a chance to develop her own cooking style. When you do our laundry, it prevents us from establishing our own household rhythms." I remember looking at Sophia during one of these speeches, and she looked as confused as I felt. Since when was helping with household chores preventing anyone from developing their own style? But Marcus always framed these critiques so carefully, so reasonably, that questioning them made me feel like I was being difficult or oversensitive. But wait, it gets so much worse. The real turning point came about 8 months after the wedding. I was in the kitchen making dinner, something I'd been doing pretty much every night because apparently neither of them had time to cook, despite Marcus's complaints about me not letting them establish their own household rhythms. It was a Tuesday evening. Sophia was working a late shift at the hospital, and I was making her favorite comfort food, chicken and dumplings, so she'd have something warm waiting when she got home. Marcus walked in, looked at what I was preparing, and instead of his usual passive-aggressive comments, he got straight to the point. "Elizabeth," he said, leaning against the counter in that way that had become so familiar and so irritating, "I think it's time we had a serious conversation." I put down the wooden spoon I was holding and turned to face him. Something in his tone was different, more direct, less of the fake politeness he usually employed. "What kind of conversation?" "Marcus!" He crossed his arms and looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. It was cold, calculating, and completely devoid of the charm he usually tried to maintain around me. "A conversation about the future of this living arrangement," he said. "About what's best for everyone involved." "What exactly are you saying?" He pushed himself off the counter and took a step closer. "I'm saying that Sophia and I have been talking, and we've come to the conclusion that this situation isn't sustainable anymore." My heart started beating faster, but I kept my voice steady. "What situation?" "This," he gestured around the kitchen, "all of this. 3 adults trying to live in one house, pretending like it's working when it clearly isn't." I wasn't aware. "There was a problem," I said, though even as the words left my mouth, I knew that wasn't entirely true. There had been tension, but I'd assumed it was normal adjustment period stuff. Marcus let out a laugh that had no humor in it. "Elizabeth, come on. You have to see how awkward this is for Sophia and me. We're newlyweds trying to start our life together, and we have her mother hovering around constantly. Hovering." The word stung more than I expected it to. "Yes, hovering. You cook our meals, you do our laundry, you clean up after us before we even have a chance to clean up after ourselves. Sophia can't even be a proper wife because you're always there, doing everything for us." I stared at this man who had never once complained about the meals I cooked or the laundry I did or the house I kept clean, and felt something shift inside me. "So let me understand this," I said slowly. "You're upset because I've been helpful. You've been suffocating." He corrected, "And it needs to stop." He leaned against the counter like he owned the place and said, "Well, for starters, Sophia and I are married now. We're adults trying to build a life together, and having a parent around all the time is, well, it's not ideal for a young married couple, if you know what I mean." I felt my heart skip a beat. "What exactly are you saying?" "I'm saying that maybe it's time to consider other living arrangements. There are some nice senior living communities around here. Or maybe you could get your own apartment. Sophia and I could take over the mortgage payments, of course. Other living arrangements, senior living communities." This man was suggesting I move out of the house I'd worked my fingers to the bone to buy. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Marcus, this is my house. I bought it. I've been paying the mortgage for years and—" "But Elizabeth," he interrupted, "you have to understand. Sophia and I need our space. We're planning to start a family soon. And 3 adults in one house? It's just not sustainable. Start a family." This was the first I was hearing about it, and I was pretty sure Sophia hadn't mentioned it either. Something felt off about this whole conversation. "Have you discussed this with Sophia?" I asked. His jaw tightened slightly. "Sophia agrees with me. She's just too polite to say anything to you directly." That's when I knew something was very wrong. My daughter and I had always been close. closer than most mothers and daughters. If she wanted me to move out, she would have come to me directly. She wouldn't send her husband to do her dirty work, but Marcus wasn't done. Oh no, this conversation was about to get much worse. Look, he continued, I'm trying to be reasonable here. I understand this is your house, technically, but Sophia is my wife now, and her happiness is my priority. And honestly, she's been stressed lately about the tension in the house. What tension? I asked, though I was starting to realize that the only tension was coming from him. Elizabeth, come on. You hover around us constantly. You cook dinner every night without asking what we want. You do our laundry without being asked. It's suffocating. Sophia feels like she can't be a proper wife with her mother always there. Enfant. Stared at this man who had been living in my house, rent-free, eating my food, using my utilities, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Pure, undiluted anger. So let me get this straight, I said, my voice getting quieter, which anyone who knows me will tell you is a dangerous sign. You want me to move out of my own house because my acts of service, cooking, cleaning, helping, are somehow preventing Sophia from being a good wife? That's not exactly what No, let me finish. I stepped closer to him. You've been living here for over a year. You've paid maybe 2 months of utilities and occasionally bought groceries. You've never once offered to help with the mortgage, the property taxes, or any of the major expenses. And now you're telling me that I'm the problem. His face was getting red, but I wasn't done. And another thing, if my daughter wanted me to move out, she would tell me herself. The fact that you're here, having this conversation without her, tells me everything I need to know about what's really going on. Marcus crossed his arms, and his whole demeanor changed. The fake politeness disappeared, and what I saw underneath was ugly. You know what, Elizabeth? You're right. Sophia didn't send me. I'm here on my own because I'm tired of tiptoeing around your feelings. This is supposed to be our home, Sophia's and mine, and you're making it impossible. Our home. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Marcus, your name isn't on the deed. Your name isn't on the mortgage. You haven't contributed anything substantial to this household except criticism and demands. That's about to change, he said, and something in his tone made my blood run cold. What's that supposed to mean? He smiled, but it wasn't a nice smile. It means that things are going to be different around here. Sophia and I have been talking, and we've decided that if you can't respect our marriage and our need for independence, then maybe you should find somewhere else to live. We've decided, or you've decided, does it matter? The point is, this arrangement isn't working anymore. That's when I heard the front door open. Sophia was home from work, and she was about to walk into the most awkward situation of her life. Mom? Marcus, I'm home, she called out. Marcus and I stared at each other for a moment. He had this smug look on his face, like he was confident that Sophia would back him up. Me? I was about to find out if my daughter had really turned against me, or if Marcus was manipulating the situation. Sophia walked into the kitchen, still wearing her scrubs from the hospital where she works as a nurse. She looked between Marcus and me, and I could see her immediately pick up on the tension. What's going on? She asked cautiously. Marcus put his arm around her shoulders. Honey, I was just talking to your mom about our living situation. Remember what we discussed? Sophia looked confused. What we discussed? And right there, in that moment, I knew Marcus had been lying. Sophia had no idea what he was talking about. Marcus told me that you two want me to move out, I said gently, watching my daughter's face carefully. He said you were too polite to tell me directly. Sophia's mouth fell open. She looked at Marcus with the most bewildered expression. I never said that. Marcus, what are you talking about? His arm tightened around her shoulders. Sophia, we talked about this, about needing our own space, about starting a family. We talked about maybe converting the guest room into a nursery someday, but I never said anything about Mom moving out. Sophia stepped away from him, and I saw something click in her eyes. Marcus, did you tell my mother that I wanted her to leave? The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus's face went through about 5 different expressions in the span of 10 seconds. He was clearly trying to figure out how to salvage this situation, but it was too late. The truth was out. Sophia, you don't understand the full situation, he started, but she held up a hand. No, Marcus, you don't understand the full situation. Sophia turned to me. Mom, what exactly did he say to you? I took a deep breath and repeated the entire conversation, word for word. I watched as Sophia's expression went from confusion to disbelief to anger. By the time I finished, her face was flushed and her hands were clenched into fists. Marcus, she said, her voice deadly calm. Did you really tell my mother that she should move into a senior living community? Sophia, I was just trying to... Did you tell her that I agreed with you when I absolutely did not? I thought you would. Did you or did you not lie to my mother about my feelings and try to manipulate her into leaving her own house? Marcus realized he was trapped. The charm wasn't working, the manipulation had been exposed, and Sophia was looking at him like she was seeing him clearly for the first time. Look, he said, his voice getting defensive. I was just trying to do what's best for our marriage. We need privacy, Sophia. We can't build a proper life together with your mother always around. My mother is never always around, Sophia snapped. She works full-time. She has her own life. And when she is here, she's nothing but helpful and respectful. That's not how I see it. Then maybe you need to get your eyes checked, Sophia shot back. I had never been prouder of my daughter than... I was in that moment, but Marcus was just getting started, and what he said next, well, you guys are going to be as shocked as I was. He looked at both of us, and I could see something calculating in his eyes. Fine, he said. You want to know the truth? I'm tired of pretending this situation is okay. I'm tired of living in someone else's house, following someone else's rules, and feeling like a guest in what should be my home. It's not your home. Marcus, I said quietly. It should be, he exploded. I'm married to your daughter. I should have some say in how we live, where we live, and who we live with. Sophia stared at him. Marcus, what are you saying? I'm saying that it's time for some changes around here. Real changes. He looked directly at me. Patricia, I've been patient. I've been respectful, but I'm done. Either you find somewhere else to live or Sophia and I will. The ultimatum hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Sophia's voice was barely a whisper. Are you giving my mother an ultimatum? In her own house? I'm giving all of us a reality check, Marcus said. This living arrangement isn't working for me anymore, and as Sophia's husband, my comfort and our marriage should be the priority. That's when I knew this wasn't about space or privacy or starting a family. This was about control. Marcus wanted to control our living situation, control Sophia's relationship with me, and ultimately control my daughter completely. But here's the thing about ultimatums. They can backfire spectacularly. I looked at this man who had been living in my house, eating my food, and now trying to kick me out of my own home, and I made a decision that would change everything. You know what, Marcus? I said, my voice perfectly calm. You're absolutely right. Both Sophia and Marcus looked surprised. This living arrangement clearly isn't working, I continued, and since you've made it clear that either I go or you go, I think it's time we settled this once and for all. Marcus looked triumphant. Sophia looked devastated, but I wasn't done talking. However, I said, before anyone goes anywhere, I think there are a few things we need to clear up, starting with exactly who has the right to make that kind of ultimatum in this house. What do you mean? Marcus asked, though something in his voice suggested he wasn't sure he wanted to know. I smiled at him. and it was the kind of smile that should have made him very, very nervous. I think it's time we all took a look at some paperwork, and that's when everything changed. But you're not going to believe what happened next. So there we were, standing in my kitchen, with Marcus looking like he'd just won the lottery, and Sophia looking like her world was falling apart. But I had an ace up my sleeve that was about to change everything. "What kind of paperwork?" Marcus asked, though I could hear a slight tremor in his voice now. Good. He should be nervous. "Well," I said, walking over to the kitchen drawer where I kept important documents. "Since you seem to think you have some say in who gets to live in this house, I thought it might be helpful for everyone to see exactly whose name is on what." I pulled out a manila folder that contained copies of all my important documents. The deed, mortgage papers, property tax records, homeowners' insurance policies. Everything that proved this house was mine and mine alone. Marcus's face went a little pale. "Elizabeth, I don't think that's necessary. We all know it's your house, technically, but—" "Technically?" I interrupted, spreading the papers out on the kitchen island. "Marcus, there's nothing technical about ownership. Either you own something or you don't." Sophia moved closer to look at the papers, and I could see her taking in every detail. The deed with my name, and only my name. The mortgage I'd been paying faithfully for years. The property tax bills that came addressed to Elizabeth Rodriguez. "Mom," Sophia said quietly, "I never realized. All of these are just in your name." "That's right, sweetheart. When I bought this house, I bought it for us. You and me. It was our fresh start after your father left." Marcus was looking at the papers too, but his expression was very different from Sophia's. Where she looked surprised and maybe a little ashamed, he looked calculating, like he was trying to figure out how to work this situation to his advantage. "Look," he said, "I understand that the house is in Elizabeth's name, but Sophia and I are married now. In most states, that gives me certain rights. What rights would those be exactly?" I asked. He straightened up, and I could see him shifting into what I can only describe as mansplaining mode. "Well, as Sophia's husband, I have a vested interest in our living situation. And since Sophia is your daughter, there are family considerations that—" "Marcus," I said, holding up my hand to stop him, "let me save you some trouble. I've been a homeowner for 6 years now. I've been through divorce proceedings. I know exactly what rights you do and don't have regarding my property." The kitchen got very quiet. "You have no rights to this house," I continued. "None. Zero. The deed is in my name, the mortgage is in my name, and even if Sophia and I wanted to add someone to the deed, that would require refinancing, credit checks, and a whole lot of legal paperwork that, frankly, you're not qualified for." Marcus's jaw was clenched so tight I thought he might crack a tooth. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I've seen your credit report, Marcus. You guys, the look on his face." I wish I could have taken a picture. "When Sophia told me you two were thinking about maybe buying a house together someday, I offered to help you understand the process. Remember, you gave me permission to run a credit check so I could give you advice about improving your score." Sophia looked confused. "I don't remember that conversation." "That's because it happened while you were at work," I said. "Marcus came to me about 6 months ago, very concerned about your financial future together. He wanted to know what steps you two could take to eventually buy your own place." This was all true, by the way. Marcus had come to me, but I was starting to realize his motives might not have been what I thought at the time. "And what did you find?" Sophia asked, looking between Marcus and me. I looked directly at Marcus. "Would you like to tell her, or should I?" Marcus was sweating now, literally sweating. "Elizabeth, that's private financial information that you gave me permission to access," I reminded him. "But you're right, it should stay between us. Unless, of course, you want to keep making demands about living arrangements based on your rights as Sophia's husband." The silence stretched out for what felt like forever. Sophia was looking at Marcus with an expression I'd never seen before, like she was really seeing him for the first time. "Marcus," she said slowly, "what aren't you telling me?" Before he could answer, I made a decision that I knew would change everything. "Sophia, sweetheart, your husband has $73,000 in credit card debt, a credit score of 524, and 3 collection accounts that he's been hiding from you." Sophia's face went white. "What?" Marcus exploded. "You had no right to tell her that. That's private information. Private information that directly affects my daughter's financial future," I shot back. "Information that you should have shared with her before you got married." "Is that true?" Sophia asked, her voice barely a whisper. Marcus looked like a cornered animal. "Sophia, it's not as bad as it sounds. I have a plan to pay it all off, and is it true?" she repeated louder this time. "Yes, but oh my God!" Sophia sat down heavily on one of the kitchen stools. "Marcus, we've been married for 8 months. We've been talking about buying a house, having kids, building a future together, and you never thought to mention that you're drowning in debt?" "I didn't want you to worry." "You didn't want me to worry." Sophia's voice was getting higher. "We're married. Your debt is my debt now. Your financial problems are my financial problems." And that's when the real truth started coming out. "Sophia," "Calm down," Marcus said. But there was something desperate in his voice now. "Yes, I have some debt, but that's exactly why this living arrangement has been so perfect. We don't have to worry about rent or a mortgage payment, so I can focus on paying down my credit cards." Sophia stared at him. "Perfect for who?" "For us. For our future. No, Marcus, perfect for you." Sophia stood up, and I could see something fundamental shifting in her expression. "You've been living rent-free in my mother's house, letting her cook and clean and take care of us, while you—" "What?" "Just focused on paying off debt you hid from me." I was trying to handle it myself, by making my mother feel unwelcome in her own home. Sophia's voice was getting stronger now, more confident. "By lying to me about conversations we never had, by trying to manipulate both of us into thinking this was somehow about our marriage needing space." Marcus looked around the kitchen like he was trapped, which honestly he was. "Sophia, you're not understanding the bigger picture here. Yes, I made some financial mistakes before we got married, but I'm fixing them. And part of fixing them means establishing ourselves as an independent family unit. Independent." Sophia laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Marcus, we're the opposite of independent. We're completely dependent on my mother's generosity. And instead of being grateful, you've been trying to push her out of her own house." "That's not what I was doing." "Then what were you doing?" I asked. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you were trying to get me out of the picture so you could have free housing while you deal with your debt, and my daughter would never know the truth about your financial situation." Marcus's face went through several expressions before settling on angry defiance. "You know what? Fine. Yes, I have debt. Yes, this living situation has been financially helpful, but that doesn't change the fact that Sophia and I deserve our own space." "Space you can't afford," Sophia said quietly. "Space we'll be able to afford once I get my finances sorted out." "When?" Sophia demanded. "When will that be, Marcus? How long have you been telling yourself you'll get it sorted out?" Marcus didn't answer, which was an answer in itself. Sophia looked at the papers spread out on the kitchen island, then at Marcus, then at me. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I had no idea about any of this." "You have nothing to apologize for, sweetheart." "Yes, I do." Sophia's eyes were filling with tears, but her voice was steady. "I brought him into your house. I vouched for him. I let him make you feel unwelcome in your own home because I was too naive to see what was really happening." "Sophia, don't," Marcus started. "No," Sophia said firmly. "I'm done listening to you make excuses. I'm done pretending that your behavior towards my mother has been acceptable, and I'm definitely done being lied to about our financial situation. Marcus's desperation was becoming more obvious by the minute. Sophia, we can work through this. Couples go through financial struggles all the time. We can figure it out together. Together? Sophia shook her head. Marcus, you've had 8 months to tell me the truth. 8 months of family meetings and boundary discussions and complaints about my mother, when the real issue was that you were using us. I wasn't using anyone. Really? Because it sure looks like you found yourself a sweet setup. Free housing, home-cooked meals, someone to do your laundry, and a wife who didn't know about your massive debt. And when the person providing all of that started to feel like an obstacle to your comfort, you decided to get rid of her. I had never been prouder of my daughter than I was in that moment, but Marcus wasn't done fighting. You know what, Sophia? Maybe your mother is right. Maybe it is time for some changes around here. His voice was getting colder, more calculated. Maybe it's time you decided whether you're a wife or whether you're still a little girl living with mommy. The kitchen went dead silent. Sophia stared at Marcus like she couldn't believe what she'd just heard. Excuse me? You heard me. You're 28 years old, Sophia. At some point you have to choose between being a daughter and being a wife. That's when I knew Marcus had just made the biggest mistake of his life. Sophia's voice, when she spoke, was ice cold. You're right, Marcus. It is time for me to make a choice. Marcus looked relieved, like he thought he'd won. I choose my mother. The color drained from Marcus's face. Sophia, that's not what I meant. No, it's exactly what you meant. You've been trying to force this choice for months, haven't you? You've been systematically trying to damage my relationship with my mother so that I'd have to choose between you and her. That's not... It is exactly that. Sophia was getting more animated now, more confident. All those comments about boundaries and independence and me not being able to be a proper wife, you were trying to make me feel guilty for having a close relationship with my mom. Marcus was scrambling now. Sophia, you're overreacting. I love your mother. I just think... You love my mother? Sophia's voice was getting louder. You just spent the last hour trying to convince her to move out of her own house. You lied to both of us, manipulated both of us. And now you're trying to gaslight me into thinking this is about me being too dependent on my mom. I'm trying to save our marriage. Our marriage? Sophia laughed, and this time there was a hysterical edge to it. Marcus, our marriage was built on lies. You hid massive debt from me. You've been financially using my mother while trying to push her away. You've been manipulating both of us for months. What exactly about that is worth saving? Marcus looked around the kitchen desperately, like he was looking for an escape route. Sophia, you're upset right now. Why don't we take some time to cool off and discuss this rationally tomorrow? I am being rational, Sophia said. For the first time in months, I'm thinking clearly. She walked over to where I was standing and took my hand. Mom, I am so sorry for everything, for bringing him here, for not seeing what he was doing, for letting him make you feel unwelcome in your own home. Sophia, no, let me finish. This is your house. It's always been your house. You worked yourself to the bone to buy it, and you've been nothing but generous in letting us live here. And instead of being grateful, Marcus has been plotting to get rid of you. She turned back to Marcus. Well, congratulations. You wanted someone to leave. You got your wish. Marcus looked confused. What do you mean? Sophia walked over to the key holder by the back door and grabbed a set of keys. These are your car keys. I suggest you use them. Sophia, you can't be serious. I'm completely serious. You gave my mother an ultimatum, remember? Either she goes or you go. Well, you're going. The look on Marcus's face. You guys, I wish you could have seen it. Pure shock. like it had never occurred to him that his ultimatum could backfire this spectacularly. Sophia, this is insane. You can't just kick me out. I live here. No, antes das me, I said, stepping forward. You've been staying here. There's a difference. I have rights. Marcus was starting to panic now. I'm Sophia's husband. I have belongings here. You can come back for your belongings, Sophia said calmly. During the day, when Mom or I are here to supervise. But tonight, you're leaving. Sophia, please. Can we just talk about this? Go to counseling, work through our problems. What problems, Marcus? Sophia's voice was getting stronger with every word. The problem where you lied to me about being $73,000 in debt? The problem where you've been using my mother's house while trying to kick her out of it? The problem where you just told me I had to choose between being a wife and being a daughter? Kiss. Tried a different approach. The debt isn't that big of a deal. Lots of people have credit card debt. We can work through it together. Together? Sophia shook her head. Marcus, you've had almost a year to tell me about this debt. Instead, you hid it, and you used our living situation here to avoid dealing with it properly. That's not working through something together. That's using me and my family. I was trying to protect you. No, you were trying to protect yourself. And now you're trying to manipulate me into feeling guilty for not supporting you unconditionally, no matter what you've done. Marcus looked at me, desperately. Elizabeth, please, talk to her. She's making a huge mistake. I looked at this man, who had been living in my house for over a year, who had just spent the evening trying to manipulate both my daughter and me, who had hidden massive debt, and then tried to kick me out of my own home. The only mistake Sophia made, I said calmly, was trusting you. Marcus's face crumpled. Sophia, I love you. I know I messed up, but I love you. If you loved me, Sophia said, you would have been honest with me from the beginning. If you loved me, you wouldn't have tried to damage my relationship with my mother. If you loved me, you wouldn't have just tried to force me to choose between you and the woman who raised me and sacrificed everything for me. I was just trying to... You were trying to control the situation, Sophia interrupted. You were trying to isolate me from my support system so that I'd be more dependent on you. And when that didn't work fast enough, you escalated to ultimatums. Marcos was crying now, which honestly just made me angry. Where were these tears when he was trying to kick me out of my house? Sophia, please. I'll do anything. I'll go to therapy. I'll be completely honest about everything. I'll apologize to your mother. Marcus, stop. Sophia's voice was tired now. It's too late for apologies. The trust is broken. I can't be married to someone who lies to me, manipulates me, and treats my family badly. You're really gonna throw away our marriage over this? Sophia stared at him for a long moment. Marcus, you threw away our marriage the moment you decided to lie to me about your debt. You threw it away when you decided to try to push my mother out of her own house. You threw it away when you gave us an ultimatum instead of having an honest conversation. She held out his car keys. Take these and go. Marcus looked at the keys like they were a snake. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore, Sophia said. You're an adult. Figure it out. Sophia, Marcus, take the keys and leave. Now. Before I call the police and have you removed for trespassing. Trespassing. In the house where he'd been living for over a year. The irony was perfect. Marcus finally took the keys, his hands shaking. This isn't over, Sophia. When you calm down and think about this rationally, you'll realize you're making a mistake. The only mistake I made, Sophia said, was not seeing through you sooner. Marcus looked around the kitchen one more time, like he was trying to memorize it or figure out some way to stay. Then he looked at me. Elizabeth, I hope you're happy. You got what you wanted. What I wanted, I said quietly, was for my daughter to be happy and respected in her marriage. You couldn't give her that. Marcus didn't have an answer for that. He walked toward the front door, and Sophia and I followed him. At the door, he turned back one more time. Sophia, I'll call you tomorrow when you've had time to think. Don't, Sophia said. I need space to figure out what I want to do about our marriage. And that's going to take more than one night. Marcus left, and Sophia closed the door behind him. Then she turned around, slid down the door, and started crying. I sat down on the floor next to her and pulled her into my arms. Oh, sweetheart. Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You have nothing to be sorry for. Yes, I do. I brought him into your house. I let him treat you badly. I didn't see what he was doing until it was almost too late. I held her while she cried, and I thought about how proud I was of her for standing up for herself, for us, for what was right. Sophia, I said finally, do you want to talk about what happens next? She wiped her eyes. I think I want a divorce. Are you sure? She nodded. Mom, the lying about money, that's huge. But trying to make me choose between him and you, trying to manipulate me into feeling guilty for loving my family, I can't be married to someone like that. It's going to be complicated, I warned her. Divorce is never easy. I know. But you know what? I have something Marcus doesn't have. What's that? Sophia smiled at me, and despite the tears, it was a real smile. I have family who actually supports me. I have a mother who worked 2 jobs to buy us a house, who's been nothing but generous and loving, and who just showed me what it looks like to stand up for yourself. We sat on the floor by the front door for another hour, talking about everything, the signs I'd seen that she'd missed, the financial implications of divorce, what she wanted her life to look like going forward. But here's the thing that made me happiest. Sophia never once wavered in her decision. She never second-guessed herself or worried that she was being too harsh. She knew, with complete certainty, that she deserved better than a man who would lie to her and try to isolate her from her family. And you know what? 3 months later, when the divorce was finalized, Sophia got to keep her maiden name, her self-respect, and her relationship with her mother. Marcus got to keep his debt and find his own place to live. As for me, I got my house back, my daughter back, and the satisfaction of knowing that when someone tried to bully me out of my own home, I had the paperwork to prove them wrong and the backbone to stand up for myself. The moral of the story: never give someone an ultimatum unless you're prepared for them to choose the option you don't want. And never, ever try to mess with a woman who's worked her whole life for what she has, because we keep receipts and we're not afraid to use them.